Did you know you can buy a house for £10,000? Yes, just £10,000. If you use it the right way, can buy you a house. Now, a lot of people don't know about this. I didn't know about this 8-9 years ago, but £10,000 used correctly can buy you a house, and I'm going to explain exactly how. So 8-9 years ago, I wanted to get started in property. I wanted to buy a property, but I didn't have enough for a deposit. Now, living in London, a 10% deposit on a 400 grand house would be £40,000, which I didn't have 8-9 years ago. All I had was around £5,000-6,000 in savings. So what I did instead was, rather than give up and sulk about not being able to afford a house, I got resourceful and I used my £5,000-6,000 in savings to start a business, a service-based business for landlords. And what this business involved was renting properties from landlords for a fixed term, normally 2 to 5 years. Then I would improve the perceived value of the property by maybe doing some painting, decorating, laying some laminate flooring, furnishing and staging the property so it looked more homely and appealing. And then I would market the property aggressively on all short-term stay platforms, all rooms for rent platforms, with all the bills included, fully furnished. And I would attract professional tenants, working professional tenants, who otherwise would be staying in hotels, paying hundreds of pounds every night, when really they just prefer a small house or a room, a studio, a bedsit, with all the bills included in one price, where they can rest and get their head down while they're working away from home. Rather than sulking about not having enough for a deposit to buy, I started using the £5,000-6,000 that I did have to rent properties from landlords. I'd give them 1 month rent up front, which when I first started was around £1,200 in Wales, where my business is based. And then I'd spend maybe a couple grand on furniture. Back then I got all the furniture from the charity shops, British Heart Foundation, places like that. And then I would re-rent the houses out to working professionals. So this is how I managed to buy a house for £10,000, because the £6,000 I invested in my first 2 rent-to-rent deals, by the end of that first year, that 6k had turned into around 20k, because each of my first 2 houses made me around £900 per month in profit, right? So by the end of the year, that £6,000 had turned into £20,000. And a few months later, I had around £25,000. And that's enough to buy your first buy-to-let property. If it's around a £100,000 house in Wales or in the north of England, that was enough for me to start buying property. And this strategy a lot of people don't know about. So in this video I wanted to share exactly how I turned my £5,000-6,000 into a deposit for a house. And that's what I did. I rented properties instead of buying them. I got resourceful. I added value to landlords who wanted a long-term fixed guaranteed rent with no hassle. And then I furnished, staged them, marketed them aggressively on all platforms, and hustled, and learned the game, learned the ropes of property whilst earning money, good money. Those first 2 properties allowed me to quit my job, my part-time job at the time. And by the end of that first year, I actually had 5 properties and I was making around £5,000 a month, all from my initial £5,000-6,000 investment. So if you're watching this video and you want to get started in property, but you feel like you need more money, or you might not be able to qualify for a mortgage, or you're worried about stamp duty, solicitor fees, there's another way. You know, you could start a rent-to-rent business, and you could use your £5,000-10,000 in savings to add value to landlords, provide a service to them, whilst making some good money. You know, on average, most of my deals make around £900 a month. I've got a couple that make over £2,000 a month, big 10-15 bedroom units. But on average, you know, the normal 5-bed 6-bed houses make around £900 a month in profit, and you don't need many of those to replace your 9-to-5 income and quit your job, right? For me, it was only a couple. So if you're watching this video and you've ever felt discouraged, and maybe you felt like the barrier to entry to get into property is too much for you, I just want you to know that there is another way. And rent to rent is a business that I've been mastering over the last 8-9 years now, and I've taught hundreds of people how to start their rent to rent businesses too, and many of them have quit their 9-to-5 jobs and they're now making £5,000, £10,000, £15,000 a month. And hopefully, you know, a few of them are on the way to buying some houses as well, you know, all from being resourceful, all from not giving up on the dream of being involved in property, all from providing a service and adding value to landlords. So you can buy a house with just £10,000 in savings. You just may have to use that £10,000 efficiently by putting it into a business that turns those £5,000-10,000 into £20,000-30,000 by the end of your first year. I know this because I've done this myself. I've helped hundreds of other people do it too. So you can buy a house for £10,000. You just have to turn that £10,000 into £20,000-30,000 over a 12 to 16 month period. Anyone can do this. You don't have to be a genius. All you have to do is be able to find landlords who are maybe tired, who are looking for a long-term rent, who don't want to manage their properties anymore. Maybe they're tired of dealing with estate agents who have given them a subpar service. You can approach these landlords and offer them a long-term fixed guaranteed rent, which will be a breath of fresh air to them. And then you can improve the property by being creative, on a budget of course. You don't want to spend too much, and by marketing the property better than most landlords, than most agents, on specific platforms, and improving the perceived value of them. You can find working people that will come and pay a premium for that type of serviced, all bills included, furnished accommodation. So as I said, anyone can do this. You just have to learn exactly how. If you want me to help you start or scale your rent to rent business, I'll put a link in the video description below. Click the link, book a call. On that call we'll have a chat and see if we're a good fit to work together. If not, that's fine too. Keep watching the videos, keep getting inspired by my success students, and make 2026 your year. And as always guys, I'll see you on the next one.